Hello there guys, it's Joey and this is a new spell set for the store, which was a requested spell set. This is honouring Yuki-Onna, the snow woman from Japanese culture. So the woman in the snow from Japanese folklore that actually transcends from ancient folklore into a modern sense because she shows up in modern telling through anime and things of that nature, is associated with winter and snowstorms in particular. Described as being a white ethereal woman wearing a white kimono. Some accounts say that you can almost see through that and see the white skin underneath. She was described as having dark blue lips, although accounts differ. Some describe her as young and beautiful and some as old and haggard. And there is a discrepancy in her origin story and her purpose. Some call her a ghost that perished in the snow. Others call her a malevolent spirit who causes death, and by speaking to her or ignoring her, depending on which myth you're reading, she will take your life, drain your life force. She has a succubi almost like function within some Japanese folklore. There are many different stories about her, and one that I found very sad and very compelling is the story that she was a princess from the moon who led a luxurious but dull life, and so she snuck out and fell to earth, but she couldn't get back, so she was trapped on earth, and on snowy nights, particularly full moons, she can be seen forlorn out in the world looking up at the moon because she can't get back, yearning for her old home. So the energies within the set are for snow magic, storms, spirits, honouring the dead, death cycles, addressing loneliness, and perception of spirituality. So actually when I was asked to do this, I was quite excited because I am a big fan of Japanese folklore and history and culture. I find it all fascinating. I love it, I adore it, and I enjoy anime as well. So I knew who she was, and I thought it's going to be a very interesting experience to create an energy for it's essentially a spirit, but there's an energy beyond that. There's a connectivity with these folklore stories that span history to modern times. Some of them are sort of a warning, and you can make arguments for, oh, it was a spirit story to warn against wandering out in the snow alone, so it has like a common sense application. But there is this really interesting transcendence, almost crone-like energy about her, and it also sort of throws into mind different winter hag / spring energies where the crone goddess can show up either as haggard or a beautiful maiden, and it can easily flow between the two. So there's definitely the energy of the snow within the woman in the snow, because snow can be beautiful, it can be ethereal, it can be magical, and we often use snow in a purification work. To cleanse, and it can be a very cleansing experience to be in snow. It can be fun, it can be joyful, but on the other side of it, snow can be dangerous. You can freeze to death, and you can have accidents, and it can be quite dangerous. So there is that duality flowing within the set itself. There's definitely a strong sense of honour going through, which is paramount, I think, to Japanese culture and creating any set which flows around the energy of a Japanese energy and the symbolism. You need to have that honour in keeping with that cultural meaning, a cultural heritage. And the difference in stories, the incredible amount of stories, it shows a perception of spirituality, different ways of interpreting things. And in more modern times, the snow woman is given much more positive attributes. And I think, like all things, there is this duality within all energies. You can see something as positive or negative depending on how you're interpreting the story, the lore, the interaction. So I was asked to create a blessing salt, a spell orb, and a spell pillar. So we'll go through those individually now. We will move the orb and do that last because they are a pain with their reflectiveness, but there you go. So these are the spell salts. I wanted it to have dashes of blue, and the dash of blue runs throughout the whole set, and the dash of blue is like for her blue lips, so there is a definite aesthetic element going through this particular set, and I think that's very true of a lot of Japanese history and folklore and representation to the rest of the world, that there is a definite aesthetic that I feel relates to Japanese culture. And if you were asked to pinpoint certain images, certain fabrics, or that are worn and that associate with Japanese style to you, certain foods, blah 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 blah, you would have a very definite idea of Japanese culture, I would say, in 9 out of 10 cases. And I had this definite aesthetic that I wanted to go through, and therefore that dash of blue is like her lips. And it's just basically the idea behind the blessing salt is the beauty in the snow. So that's very much what the aesthetic looks like. You can almost envision it as part of her kimono even, and there is a strong kimono element actually in the spell orb as well. To be cloaked in snow, to be cloaked in spirituality, that's what it feels like. So then we have the pillar, and I will move the pillar around so you can see the top. Let's see if we can just, yeah. The light's a bit glary because of the season and the weather outside. So the candle itself has a ice undertone, and one of her energies is, she's sometimes interchangeably known as ice and snow, but I really wanted it to have a depth to it rather than just go for a white. And snow is sort of made up of different varying colours depending on whether it's freshly fallen, where it falls, it turns grey as it gets older, and so I wanted a very snow themed top. And you can even see how there's a crescent going around here, so it almost looks moon-like as well. So it almost looks like falling snow, and then it has a lunar energy to it as well, as was in her myth. And then this beautiful blue-grey, which is hand-blended until I had the colour that I wanted, and I'm very, very happy with it. And it kind of brings that blue in from the colour of her lips and keeps the spell set bound together with the idea of shading and colouring and crossing the energies throughout. Right, we shall attempt the spell orb. That's so reflective. Okay. So, the sheer ribbon is white, reflecting the snow, but also the sheer of the ribbon relates to the idea of the sheerness of her kimono. That in some of the stories you can see through the kimono, and it's very, very sheer, and you can see her white limbs underneath. And it's in this myth, it's sort of being applied to her frailty almost, her otherworldliness, that she shouldn't be surviving in the snow, but she is, and it's very much taking that aesthetic again to give deeper meaning, and that's something that I wanted to apply to the set. So it's also very long. There's also more ribbon than I usually apply to spell orbs, and that is purposeful because I wanted it to mirror the idea of the obi that is tied around the kimono. That obi is, if you like, a bit like a belt, if you don't know what an obi is, but it's a piece of material, a piece of fabric, it's a item of clothing of its own right, and it's very ritualistically applied, and it's the centre piece of the kimono. I told you I love Japanese culture, so this long flowing ribbon applies to the idea of the obi. And we have 2 snowflakes here for the charms, snow being the obvious choice, but I wanted to have 2 on differing variant of height to give the impression of falling snow. And now it's because I've said that, it's not going to behave itself. Can we, I'll tell you what, we'll just hold it. And then within, it's all very light with dashes of blue. So it's all in keeping with the winteresque theme. There is this very, very frail downing in here to give the impression of snow, of light, of ethereal. It's almost a spirit realm style orb. It's designed to give an impression of otherworldliness with those deep dashes of blue to represent the blue of her lips and the energies of each particular flower and herb mirroring the energies throughout the set. So beauty and frailty, but yet strength, and honouring the dead, honouring the ancestors, honouring her herself, honouring Yuki-Onna. Snow and the ice and the magic that is surrounded within those things as well being of paramount importance. And the aesthetic, the interpreting spirituality through the perception of when we live, how Yuki-Onna is transcendent across time, and perception of spirituality through a physical lens. So I really, really like this particular set. I'm really pleased with it. I think it resonates just as I wanted it to, and I'm really pleased. So I hope you really like it, and many blessings.